Welcome in, everybody, to the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I've got Josh Yohe with The Athletic and comedian Joe Bartnick alongside. And gentlemen, we have some good news. It was timed out perfectly by Mr. Sidney Crosby. Sidney Crosby has signed, and Josh, I'll let you allude to the details as to what the contract looks like and what this means going forward.
So the deal is for 2 years, which we kind of had speculated in recent weeks that, the time of the contract might be the issue. And Sid admitted that just a few minutes ago. In fact, he just wasn't sure how many more years he wanted to commit to because of his age. But for those who haven't heard, it's a 2-year deal. Won't be shocked to know it's $8.7 million a year annually, as we assumed would be the case. This will take him through the 26-27 season, at which time he will be 39 years old. So that's the news. And guys, I've been saying all summer, it's not really a story until we get to training camp. So the Penguins waited, and Sid waited about 45 hours before puck dropped at training camp to announce the news. But the news is out there, and he certainly left a lot of money on the table, Joe, as he always does. I think that's part of his charm and part of his legacy, all the money he's left on the table to help make the Penguins better.
He absolutely does leave money on the table. I mean, 8.7. That's chump change nowadays in the NHL. There's third line centers making 8.7.
Darnell Nurse makes more than that. Come on.
Hey, well, yes. I think it's a great deal. I think two sounds right. He gets one more with Gino, and if Gino ends up playing his final year, he'll get 2 more with Gino. If not, he gets one last victory tour if that's what he wants, and he still sticks by his guns and doesn't play till he's 40. And you can kind of see this through. I think it's a great deal for the Penguins because everyone was speculating he's going to take 10. You knew he was going to take 8.7. Just makes sense.
No, it does. And I just like how it works out time-wise. The contract's up at 39. This may be the last contract he signs, guys. And like I always say, he owes nobody anything. He will be 39 at that point. That will be the conclusion of his 22nd season and his 20th season as captain of the Penguins. That will get him through the Olympics, which I know he wants to play in one final time. So he might hang him up then, and that's possible. So you got at least 3 more years of Sid. But I think at that point, if he still wants to play, if the passion is still there, if he is still operating at a level that he is pleased with, then you can go from there. Maybe he'll just sign 1-year deals from then. Maybe he'll sign another 2-year deal, or like I said, maybe he'll retire. We will see. But it's a great contract for the Penguins. It doesn't hamstring them. Dubas can still build the team as he wants moving forward. There's not a massive financial commitment now, but it certainly will make everybody in the ticket sale department happy, knowing that they can sell Sidney Crosby for at least 3 more years. I just think it's a great deal for the Penguins, and from Sid's standpoint, I think it's just sensible. He doesn't want to sign a 5-year deal unless because in 2 years he might just not want to play 3 more years after then. So I just think it's a great deal for everybody.
He signed just in time to play mailman today too. He got to go deliver this season tickets. Like, Dubas put him right to work. It's like, all right, sign the check, and here you go. Go hand out some tickets. I thought it was fabulous. I wish I was lucky enough to have someone Sidney Crosby show up at my door. It is a fabulous. So it is 3 more. It's a 2-year extension, so it's 3 more years. I'm so bad at math, Josh. You know that. So it is 3 more years then. He's a Penguin.
Yes, because he still is under contract for 1 season and then 2 additionally after that. So that takes him through the 26-27 season. Who knows how the Penguins will look 2 or 3 years from now? We don't know. But it doesn't cripple the franchise, this contract and this salary. And he's still so great, guys. I mean, he's a bargain. I don't know how many players it is that make more than 8.7. It's a big number now. And he's still, to me, one of the 5 or 6 best players in the sport. So this is a great thing for the Penguins in every direction.
Well, let's say, I'm being fair. He's the 5th best center in hockey. He's making 8.7.
Right.
You should be able to. That should be a cornerstone for your franchise, not a hindrance.
That's right, and it is. No, it absolutely is. So and we heard all the talk. Usually, it comes from Canada. Although we think Sid wants out, we think Sid might want to go play in Colorado. No, I know him really well, and I know so many people close to him and in the organization. Nobody was worried about that. I really think what took so long all summer, and the more it went on, the more we kind of pieced it together. He just doesn't know how much longer he wants to play. So he didn't want to do anything that would screw the Penguins out of money, or probably that would make him feel uncomfortable. So this is, I think, the perfect length of contract for everybody involved. And it's a great day for the Penguins. And I can't find any negative in this story, quite honestly.
Your esteemed co-worker and my paisan, Rob Rossi, he had a great quote. I mean, not hit quote, whatever. He wrote a great line when he said I'm paraphrasing, but that, Sid basically did the impossible. He carved out a career almost, if not equal, to Lemieux's in this town.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. They're different, right? He and Mario are so different in so many ways, but when you look at iconic careers in all of Pittsburgh sports, somebody actually tweeted at me today. Like, people like to talk about the Mount Rushmores. The Pittsburgh Mount Rushmore is very clearly Mario, Sid, Mean Joe, and Clemente. Like that, I don't even think you can make an argument that's it. And Sid is the most consistent superstar, the consistently great, long-lasting superstar in the history of the sport. I always say he was so precocious as a teenager, and now at age 37, he's still going so strong. You just don't see this in even the all-time great athletes. So to even put him in the same sentence as Mario, that's rare air, but I think it's fair.
I know, when you think about it, I mean, it's actually like a discussion where someone could make a point that he's had a greater career. And it's unfathomable to think about that. That's literally like when people try to compare rock bands to the Beatles.
Yeah.
No one wants to hear the argument, but now legitimately it's an argument.
Well,
not an argument maybe, but it's a discussion.
Yeah, and I always say, when I compare Mario and Gretzky, I always say Gretzky had the greater career. Mario was the better player. And you can say the same thing with Mario and Sid. I don't think any player's ever been better than Mario. But when you compare, all the games he missed and everything else with Sid, and just the amount of games played and the production and the year, the playoff streak, the 3 cups, the 2 gold medals, his resume really isn't quite like anyone else's in the history of the sport.
No, the thing that separates, I mean, besides being in the, Holy Trinity with Howe and Wayne Gretzky just rising above everything, and then now Sid might be on Rushmore. The thing that I think separates Mario from basically everybody, this is Penguins, this is Steelers, this is NHLers, this is everybody except like, Danny Thomas and St. Jude. I mean, is Lemieux's charity work. I mean, that's to me what separates him. I know it's a sports show, but literally to me, Lemieux is on the Pittsburgh Mount Rushmore of like Jonas Salk, Mr. Rogers, and Andrew Carnegie.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah. No, he is. And that's fair. But I would also counter that, and you're 100% right. That Crosby's cut from the same cloth. And that's what always makes him so special to me. Yes, he's one of the 5 greatest hockey players ever. I don't think many people dispute that. He literally might be the best human being I've ever met in my life. Like I mean that sincerely. Sometimes I will joke with him. I'll say like, you're like nicer than everyone. Like, and it seems to be sincere. Where the hell did you come from? And he just shrugs his shoulders like, I don't know. I just am who I am. And he means it. That's just the person that he is. I can't tell you how lucky Pittsburgh is when you think about those big names. You talk about Mario's charitable work. Look at how Roberto Clemente died. Look at how he lived his life. And look at the way Crosby lives his life. Like these are wonderful human beings, not to mention some of the greatest athletes in history. So, man, are we spoiled.
I mean, I've talked about it on this show. It's like, sometimes when I have a decision to make, I literally go, what would Sid do? And it's always about working harder and being a better person. Literally, right. What would Sid do? Sid would work on his act. Sid would do this. Sid wouldn't day drink.
Well, you're sitting there day drinking. He's running wind sprints with a parachute on his back through the sand. So
that's right. That's what he's doing. He's visiting Children's Hospital, and he actually is. That's the scary thing. Like he is that guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I was not even remotely trying to say that Sid isn't as nice a person as me. I'm just saying, like, just the charitable work alone just puts
Sure.
Lemieux above it. I mean, it's insane. It really is.
So the Penguins, they put out, I wanted to ask you guys this, because they put out, and this kind of goes to your preview a little bit, Josh, of what the lineup's going to look like. But, the Pens put out the little video that they probably had queued up from July 1st on of, how they were going to tweet it out whenever Sid signed. And I got to admit, and I don't know if Joe, if you watched the video, but it got me pretty hyped up, and the yins are inside of me started going, here we go. I think we can win another cup here in these last 3 years. But I don't know. I mean, that leaves us a lot of wiggle room, because I think everybody would have been okay with and expected the contract to be more than 10 and a half. So what does this do for the Pens? Not just having Sid around, but actually rebuilding, with these young guys we've got. It's a little bit more cap space. What do you think?
Well, first things first, it's not going to be a rebuild in the conventional sense. As long as he is around, especially making a reasonable amount of money, they're not going to tear it down. They're going to keep spending to the cap. The next year or two will be interesting, because I don't think you'll see them add a whole lot at the trade deadline or make any big time free agent moves. Everything they're doing behind the scenes is geared toward adding draft picks and developing these prospects that they're going to be getting. But I think the real story now is, if they can get through the next year or two and add some young talent, and then some of the cap space will open up. It might be a farewell tour to Sid, but by the end of this contract, the goal is to have a new wave of Penguins, a bunch of 21, 22, 23-year-old kids who can really play, and to put them around Sid and to learn from him, and to have some money to buy a couple of free agents simultaneously, and really give him a good team in his final years, whether it's 3 years from now or if he signs a deal after that. That's the goal, and it's easier said than done, but it also is possible. And if he keeps playing at a high level, that makes things that much more attainable. So I think if you're a Penguin fan, enjoy the farewell tour for the big three. But I also think there should be excitement. There are young players that will be on the way now. That's the vision. And if Sid's still around when they all show up, and if they're really good, that's a pretty cool conclusion to his career.
I think we do see light at the end of the tunnel, with Sid still in the tunnel with an extra 3 years here.
That's right.
It is funny, because Josh was nice enough to come to my comedy show in Boca. And, I just breathe, and people see me and they start talking hockey. And we had some big, some Bruins fans and Ranger fans, and they give it up. They want to hate Sid, but they can't. He's too damn good. I love it.
Don't you find people softening toward him a little bit in the later parts of his career? Even in Washington, I noticed it especially with the Penguins and Capitals. Ovechkin's actually received a couple of polite ovations in Pittsburgh when he's just broken a milestone and they announce it. And I don't sense the hostility towards Cap fans. Here's what happened. The Caps had to win a cup. And when they finally won a cup, all of a sudden they could let some of the hate towards Sid go. And I actually think you'll see a lot of respect, especially between those two guys in the last couple of years of their careers, which will be nice, because I know Pittsburgh doesn't love Ovi and Washington doesn't love Sid, but as hockey fans, and we're all hockey fans, those are some of the best times of our lives, watching those two go at it when they were at the height of their power.
Oh, it's Larry and Magic. That's what it is. So they should be doing it. They should be doing a Tim Hortons commercial, because McDonald's, they'd be finding Caitlin Clark and whoever to do their commercials. But they can play in Canada. But even I used to always go on the Broad Street Bullies podcast, and even those guys have given in and said, almost like you can't beat them, join them. Just because I always think jealousy, I've said this quote many times, is a bad look on anybody. That's why the people that hated Brady, I'm like, what are you doing? He's just better. He's just better than our guys. And the same with Sid. Sid's just better than your guys. There's no reason to hate him. Enjoy it.
And he still is. That's the beauty of it. It's been almost 20 years. He's entering his October 9th when the season opens against the Rangers. That'll be the beginning of his 20th season in Pittsburgh and his 18th as captain. I actually tweeted, when this contract is up in 3 years, he will have spent more than half of his life as captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He'll be 39, and 20 of those years will be captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't know if that's ever happened in hockey, or I don't think so in any sport. It's just really an extraordinary thing.
I think I just
And
saw
it,
something. He's going to pass somebody for all-time consecutive years of being a captain. I think he can pass Gretzky, right? He's at 18 now.
That sounds right. Yeah, I mean,
Whoever has
it's
it is
just
19. So if he does 2 more years as captain, yeah, he's
yeah.
he's got it.
It's just unprecedented stuff, Joe. I mean, it just,
I'm an old man, Josh. I remember jumping as high as a white man could ever jump in my living room when we won the lottery. And I still can't even believe that he's turned out as great as he did. Even if he just left with 1 cup with the concussion, to be like, it was worth it. 3 cups, new arenas, everything he's brought us. It's just these are the gold. This is the golden era. It's so exciting. Now, I don't know if I was hallucinating this, but did I hear in a podcast somewhere that he was maybe going to tweak his stick? Did you hear that, Josh? That maybe he wasn't. Didn't. Okay, then I don't want to start spreading rumors. Maybe I hallucinated it. I don't know. I've had some weird dreams.
Yeah, weird shit happens when we're in Florida together. I know.
It wasn't the bath salts, folks. It wasn't the bath salts.
No, but I got to thinking about when the Penguins won the draft lottery. I remember I wasn't covering the team yet. I remember that day in 2005 so vividly. I was floating around on a raft in the Atlantic Ocean at Myrtle Beach, and back then we didn't take our cell phones everywhere, right? So I just left my cell phone in the hotel room. I go into the hotel, and it wasn't televised in the States, as I recall. I look at my phone. I have 52 texts. I said, "Oh shit, who's dead? This isn't good." Then I saw like all the texts that said Crosby ! Crosby! I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then 20 years later, he's still Sidney Crosby and still going strong. It's an incredible story.
I can't even. Yeah, it's like you can't remember. I can't really remember. I can always obviously remember the Mario years. But then it seems like the Dick Tarmstrom era has just been erased from my mind. It's like I can't remember not having my dog Ruby, who now has 2 cups. She came in the summer 2009. I can't remember life without Ruby, and I can't remember when Josh Yowie wasn't covering the Penguins. That's how long ago it was.
No, it absolutely has been. It's been an entire generation. I mean, there are like high school and college kids who have never known the Penguins without Sidney Crosby. It makes all of us feel old, but that's
so old.
That's the reality of it. He's just been so great for so long, and I think about it all the time, guys. And I know Sid feels grateful. A few nights ago, I'm watching the Thursday night football game when Tua almost died on the field from another concussion. And you go back to 2011 and how scary that time was when Sid was dealing with the concussion. Basically, he missed over a year of time because of it. It was very much career-threatening, life-altering. Man, thank goodness that he has been able to largely avoid concussion since then, because think of everything we would have missed if he didn't.
Oh, yeah. God bless. Yeah, it's the best. He's the best.
That first round against Tampa Bay in 2011, I remember sitting there going like, no Gino, no Sid. And I was like, I'm not ready for this. This wasn't supposed to happen for another, 12 years or something. So the fact that they're still playing together and, we could add Trocheck or something instead of Gino, but I'm with you, Joe. I mean, let's see this out. Let's see how it goes. I couldn't be happier. And then, Josh, I was going to say, I mean, you got to be thankful. As Penguins fans, we're incredibly spoiled. So don't rush them out the door. Enjoy every moment, because as you've seen with the Steelers, when the great ones go, there's not always another one that's ready to take the mantle.
No, that is true. So if Sid wants to be great for 5 or 6 more years, I think everybody would be perfectly okay with that. And I always say this, and I don't think I'm overstating it, just to have a group of young players around him, just to learn from him, both on and off the ice, his habits. He's still the last guy on the ice every day. And just the way he lives his life away from the rink. Like, there have been a lot of athletes in Pittsburgh in the last 20 years who you probably didn't feel comfortable with your kid wearing their jersey, right? I mean, let's be honest. But you can't say that about Sid. Like, yeah, my kid wears a Sidney Crosby jersey. Sidney Crosby's a good human being. There's something to be said for that. So it's very much the golden era of Penguins hockey. The 90s were great as well in a different kind of way, but this has been an extraordinary thing.
Yeah. This is old history, but I want to bring it up again because that's what we do here. Now, I heard that Gino was basically begging to play on a cracked knee, on a ruined knee against Tampa, and they said, "No, you're not doing that. You're not going to ruin your career." Is that true?
Oh yeah, 2011.
Josh?
Yeah,
Yes, I mean, yeah.
I saw him in Amalie Arena before Game 4. It was the morning ski. He was literally running laps around the concourse of the arena. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You tore your ACL 2 months ago. He really tried to push it a little bit, but I think he had to realize they weren't going to let him play. But he was adamant that he wanted to. Those Penguins were
that's
so
great.
good. That team was so good. If they just had one of the two big guys, they might have won the whole thing. But unfortunately,
Yeah, no, that's why when people try to, I'm always team Gino. When anyone ever tries to be like, oh, he doesn't want it as bad as X, Y, or Z, he totally wants it as bad as me. And that's one of my favorite things about those two is they hate the Flyers as much as I do.
Oh, yeah, right. They do, especially Sid. And no, you're right about Gino. Gino might have some bad habits as a hockey player. He might drive you nuts sometimes. Don't ever question how much he wants to win. He and Sid share that bond, and Letang. Those three are so hyper competitive, so obsessed with winning. And Sid was actually asked about an hour ago, why don't you ever take more money? And he just very matter of factly said, well, I want to win, and it helps us win if I don't take more money. And that's literally all he cares about at this point. It's not like he hasn't made his money, of course. There's no greed in this guy. He just wants another championship before he's done, and he'll do everything in his power to make it happen.
Speaking of winning, is Mr. and Mrs. Malkin, are they staying? Are they going to be here at the beginning of the year? We could use a nice winning streak in October, November. Get a little cushion.
That's probably
Is there any
something
intel on that? That's what we
Yeah,
need.
would it kill them to show up twice this season? Maybe like in October and April. I know.
Yeah.
I know they like it over there, but come on. I know it's not so simple to travel over here from Russia these days. I get it, but that would be a good idea, Joe. I'll pass it along.
Maybe she can make some borscht for the whole team.
Why not? Whatever it takes.
That powered the 2009 Cup run, as I remember. So,
right.
Well, there's more Russians now. Hopefully, when we do our training camp preview in a couple minutes here, there's more Russians to feed.
I know.
Tell Natalie to get the bigger bowl out. Get the bigger bowl.
Yeah. So, what are we looking at here, Josh? I mean, training camp. You said 48 hours away. 48 hours from now, they'll be done with their first practice. So what are we looking at? Who should we be looking at? What names we looking for in training camp outside of Rucker, McGroarty, and the others that we know?
Well, that's the big one. For people who don't know, camp opens on Wednesday, and Wednesday, Thursday. I think it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There are 3 sets of practices. They start at 9 a.m. They go until about 1 p.m. Free for everyone at UPMC and Cranberry. So I always suggest going. It's always a big crowd. It's always fun. What I like to look for, ironically enough, on opening day of training camp, you can tell everybody looks rusty. Nobody really looks quite himself. I always just watch Sid on the first day because he literally requires no time to be in like game form. He always looks so much better than everybody, even more than usual on the first day of practice. It's always hilarious to me. Rutger McGroarty, obviously, we don't get prospects to actually, pay attention to in camp that have a pedigree. That's one to look at. The Russian goaltender, Miroshov, I keep an eye on this kid. He's not very big. He's a little undersized. He is an athletic freak of nature. He's unbelievably talented. I'm really excited to see him. And guys, the biggest storyline in camp is probably Tristan Jarry or Alex Nedeljkovic. What's going on here? Is Tristan the number one guy? I asked Mike Sullivan back in June, is Tristan Jarry your number one goaltender going into training camp? He responded, and I quote, "We think Tristan's the number one NHL goalie." He didn't answer the question. I think he'll be the guy, probably, but I'm very interested to monitor that because there's no doubt he was in the doghouse in March and April.
Moving forward is what he's. I'm interested in everything, but I'll tell you what, I'm also interested in some of the guys. I've had a thing for Sammy Poulin. He's a battler. I'd see him get a real shot. If we want to say Puustinen is like, okay, he's an NHLer, maybe, I don't know. But some of the guys that like that Mark Johnstone guy, he came up for a coffee. Is he going to do anything? The Androsky, like Hallander. Is he going to do anything? The Juna Koppinen guy. All the guys have always got cups of coffee. Are they going to just get pushed out now because Dubas went out and got like 9 fourth liners, or are they still going to have a shot, Josh?
I mean, they might have a shot, but all those guys they went out and got, you have to think they're going to get a look. Kevin Hayes, there are some people just don't want to see Kevin Hayes. Kevin Hayes is going to be in the lineup. I mean, they're absolutely going to play him to see what he can still do. But I am interested in some of those new guys too, Joe. Cody Glass is a guy who was like the 6th overall pick in the draft a few years ago. He wasn't bad in Nashville. He had some injury problems. I'm curious to see if he can play in the bottom 6. Puustinen, you mentioned Puustinen, like he's got talent. So we see the way that guy can shoot the puck, and he slowly but surely got better last season. I want to see what he can do when the season starts too, and when training camp starts rather. So there are more people to keep an eye on in this training camp, even guys who are on the team. Like, I know this isn't like a sexy position. This is the third defense pairing, but was that the real Jack St. Ivany that we saw for a month last season? Because if it was, that's a pretty damn good third pairing defenseman, in my opinion. But I want to see how he looks in training camp to make sure that wasn't just an aberration. So there's all kinds of guys to keep an eye on. There's literally 12 forwards to pick from for the bottom 6, which is kind of an unusual thing. So I think from that standpoint, it's a very competitive camp.
You might have stumbled on the biggest question of all. Will the real Ryan Graves please skate on the ice?
Christ, I almost forgot about
it. No, because I mean, I'm doing my homework, and the depth chart is like, it's like Pedersen and Grzelcyk. Okay, I guess Aho can go on the left side, and then Shea. I like Ludwig. I
do too.
To me, I'll take him over Graves. But I mean, Graves better. Is Sid's pay cut just so we can waive Graves? I mean, it's like. Or where's the money going to go?
What if that was his request?
when we talk about, the salary structure with Sid's new deal and how they're in pretty good shape, as an organization in general, they're in pretty good shape financially, except for the Ryan Graves deal. Because there's still, 5 years left on that contract. If you want to give him a buyout after this year, great. Guess what? You're still paying him like $1 million a year against your cap for 8 years. You don't really want to do that. Ideally, he plays well enough where he's playable, or playable enough that you can trade him, which I still think is pretty unlikely, but anything's possible, I suppose. No, that's a great point, Joe. He is absolutely somebody to keep an eye on in training camp to see how he looks. He wasn't really a disaster in training camp last year. He looked fine. And the first couple of games, I didn't think he was that bad. And then by the end of October, it's like, what the hell's going on with this Graves guy? He was just so bad. So, did he do anything magical to get better in the summer? I don't know, but man, that would sure help the Penguins if he did.
Well, I think Grizz had an off year. I was a big Grizz guy up in Boston, so I think Grizz had just an off year last year. So let's say Grizz can come in and play competently, and then maybe he can play with Letang. You keep Pedersen up with EK. And then if Graves can just settle in with like St. Ivany and not be a disaster, I can live with that 6.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to reinvent the wheel then.
No, it's not bad. And they have some, I think Aho and Shea are perfectly competent 7 and 8 type guys. They have some depth. I tend to agree with you. You mentioned Marcus Pedersen. Now there's an interesting story. He's going into the last year of his contract. I know they love him. I don't need to tell anyone how important Marcus Pedersen is to the Penguins. He's their best defensive player.
Oh my God. I mean, I remember last November saying, if I thought we can't lose Marcus Pedersen, I'd have jumped off a bridge 2 years ago. Right. And now I absolutely mean it.
Right. So I assume they're going to sign him at some point, probably sooner rather than later. He could make a fortune in free agency next season. We all know that. My only question about him, and I don't think this will happen, what if the Penguins fall off a cliff this year? What if Sid gets hurt? Whatever. They're one of the worst teams in the league. They're looking at a lottery pick. You could trade Marcus Pedersen for a first-round pick and probably then some at the deadline if you wanted to. And I wonder if that's in the back of Dubas's mind. and why he hasn't given him a new deal just yet. Just throwing that out there. I don't know that. But Kyle has very few trade chips because most of these guys have no trade clauses. It's very hard for him to really get any more future assets. That's one thing they could do. I know it's not the time of year to be talking trades, but I'm just curious to see what happens with Marcus. I think they should keep him and frankly put a letter on his chest at some point. He's an unbelievably good guy, great guy in that locker room. He's still, 27, 28 years old. So I think they'll give him a deal, but he's just a name to consider if they don't. Man, would contenders covet him at the deadline if the Penguins are out of the race.
Now, is it hard though to just had the an immortal hockey player take less money and say we're not rebuilding, and then you trade your best defenseman because
right.
either he's gonna play with Carlson or he's gonna play with Letang, and that's
right.
a huge hole if he's traded.
And that's why I think they'll sign him, and I think they should. But I'm curious to see how quickly that will happen because boy, they are not a great defensive team to begin with. You take him out of the equation, you have a major problem. And he's a great partner for Carlson. That will be the top pairing when the season starts, no question.
I mean, he was so good for the first 3/4 of last season. It was incredible. I just think he wore out.
And he does that sometimes. He has a bit of a history of in March and April, probably because he's 120 pounds. I think that might be the issue. But I also think Marcus, he kind of gets a little better every season, and he's just good enough with the puck. He makes those good little passes. A lot like Dumoulin in his prime. He was a defense first guy, but he was good enough with the puck to play with a Letang or to play with a Carlson. That's really important. So I have nothing but good things to say about Marcus. I think he's a hell of a hockey player.
Good guy too, stepping up for teammates. I mean,
you're right.
I don't want to see him go at all. I think that'd be one of those signs was they're this summer we didn't go after anybody, and then it's now we're getting rid of. I don't know. I'm glad he's around.
I think it's important for this year for them to be a playoff team. I want to see a step in the right direction. I think Sid is hoping that that's what he sees too. But maybe we'll talk about that. I kind of ask you guys. I wanted to get your preseason prediction, and then we'll follow it up here after. But yeah, I hope we do. And we're gonna do Joe's Metro preview in the second segment. So we'll get into that a little bit. But first, Josh, we got our friend the Reg Dunlap of insurance. You can't beat Reg Dunlap, and you can't beat the Reg Dunlap of insurance.
Yeah, Bill Neofus was very excited this morning when the Sid news passed. He's a massive Sidney Crosby fan, and much like Joe, just hates the Flyers. The vitriol for the Flyers I get from this man just never ceases to amaze. It's great stuff. Yes, they are our first sponsor. We love them, the Neofus Insurance Group. They specialize in personal and business insurance. They've served Western PA since 1960, the year Mavs beat the Yanks. They are available to consult you whether you're renting your first apartment, buying your first home or car, or starting a new business. With multiple Fortune 100 companies available, the team at Neofus Insurance Group will work to find you the insurance solution that meets your needs. And by the way, this is great. We're moving into deer season, and we've all hit deer if we live in Western Pennsylvania, right? Particularly in this area. The quick tips to help you out. Look for deer eyes. You know the phrase deer in headlights. At night, watch for the reflection of deer eyes in your headlights. They can give you an early warning that deer are nearby. Be extra cautious at dawn or dusk because those damn deer love to run on the roads at right when sun's setting. I find that's always when they're most active. Don't swerve. If a deer suddenly appears in front of you, it's safer to brake than to swerve. This is good advice. And where there's one, there's usually more. Deer travel in groups. There's no doubt about that. So little friendly tips because he's the best sponsor ever. The Neofus Insurance Group. They're available 412-364-3388 or online at neofusinsurance.com.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. And yeah, don't swerve out of the way of a deer. Just hit the brakes and hit it, and then the Neofus Insurance Group will have your back. They'll take care of the car. You'll be good to go. So Joe wrote for on twofortalking.com, our website, and also his other publications. Wrote a Metropolitan Division preview, and we'll start at the bottom and rank. Go through his breakdown where he sees the teams landing. But I wanted to get your guys' reactions before we go, because if you go through the list, it's going to give you basically exactly where Joe at least thinks they're going to land. So off the cuff, and I'll ask you guys again, between the last preseason game and the first regular season game, and we'll see if anything changes. But as they're constructed right now, are the Penguins a playoff team?
I think probably no. I think they're so similar to last year. I think they're right on the fringe. If they made the playoffs, I wouldn't be shocked at all. I think they'll be kind of in the race all season. But do I think they're one of the best 8 teams in the conference? Not quite. I'd probably rank them about 9th, to be honest.
Yeah, I downgrade them. This is the first year we've talked about this for a month. This is the first year where I just don't think I don't go into the season thinking they are a playoff team.
It's a sad
it's a sad pill to take. It's a sad column to write, I will tell you that. But every day that moves forward, I feel a little bit more positivity. But I can't put them over that hump.
Yep.
Just
okay, so we'll revisit that. Maybe they'll knock our socks off here in the preseason. But getting to Joe's list, so and I'll actually read number 8 because I think you summed it up perfectly. Columbus, the Blue Jackets at number 8. They were a horrible hockey team before Johnny Gaudreau's tragic death. So I mean, there's really nothing more you can say about Johnny Gaudreau. We all have gone over that, and rest in peace, him and his brother. But even with him, like you said, Joe, they were a terrible team. So I mean, nobody sees them climbing out of the basement here, right?
No, I don't, and I'm not trying to throw. I even feel kind of sad talking about beating up, but like they want to make Werenski, or I'm saying his name wrong. He's a great defenseman. I've never seen him do anything. My biggest thing was, and not to make light of this whatsoever, but I don't know, coach, like even a Tortorella, maybe a Sullivan, somebody that could stir the echoes and maybe use that tragedy to their advantage. I hate to say it like that. They could make this team rise above. I can see, but Eveson, I mean, he's going to plug in his tanning machine and go from there. I just think they're in bad shape.
Yeah, I mean, with Johnny Gaudreau, they were a bad team. We know that. Not only do you not have him in the lineup anymore, but just the malaise that could create for that team too. I mean, I think this is the worst team in the NHL right now, and I think it's going to be just a miserable season in Columbus. I just look at that roster. I don't know where the goals are coming from. I think they are absolutely the candidate to get the number 1 pick next year.
Yeah, and I hope for their sake it's not what happened. But I mean, if you know your Penguins history, whenever Michel Briere passed away, it was like finally things were on the uprise, maybe seemed good, and the franchise just seemed cursed. And something like that can hang over you for years to come, and hopefully for Columbus' sake that it doesn't. But moving on to number 7 on the list makes Joe smile to see them here, and he does it with no bias whatsoever. It would be the Philadelphia Flyers.
No, I do it with no bias. I look at their roster and I think it's terrible. In their front office. Their front office, they didn't go get a number 1 center. They didn't go get a number 1 defenseman. They didn't even shore up their goaltending. What they did was besmirch the name of a few prospects and a few veterans. So it feels like Bobby Clark was still running the franchise. The greatest thing is with Tortorella, they're going to play hard, and he may move them up to a 5th or 6th, which is great for anyone that hates the Flyers, which is just about everyone who doesn't live in Philadelphia, because that means they won't be a lottery team. So they'll never get any better.
Which is always the problem with them, right? They're kind of like what the Maple Leafs were at 20 years ago, and they were just never really bad enough to get one of those picks. I give Tortorella credit. I thought he did a really good job with that team last season, given the talent that he had to work with. They played hard. They were in it until the very end, which I couldn't believe. On paper, they're not a good team. They're a terrible team. I think eventually, the Carter Hart situation is really gonna hurt them between the pipes. They don't have the goaltending now. They don't have the top tier talent. I could see them taking a step back from where they were last year. In fact, I kind of think they will. I give Torch credit for what he did. I don't know that he can do it again. And keep this in mind too. Torch is a good coach, but the longer he stays in one place, the more people eventually get tired of him, and the more the success rate tends to drop for whoever he's coaching. So I absolutely do not view them as a playoff team.
Yep. And another team that looks like they're going to be on the outside looking in will be the Washington Capitals, which I have to admit, I mean, Joe, you kind of talked about it on the show, but at one point you said you're like, I feel like the Capitals got better during the offseason. I don't know if they got that much better though, I guess. And really this season for the Caps at this point, it's about Ovechkin breaking the record. That's what the next couple years is. If this was a Caps podcast, that's what we'd be talking about. Well, when do you think?
Oh yeah, well, you know, they went their record. If they win a few hockey games along the way, that's really good. You know, at first I liked some of the moves they made. Now I'm a big Andrew Mangiapane fan, not just because he's Italian. I think Chikrin is a little overrated, but a good pickup from them. And I think they improved their team. But then you look, Backstrom may never come back. Oshie doesn't look like he's coming back. Terrible Tommy, who I love. Sorry, Pittsburgh, I'll take Terrible Tommy any day of the week on my team. He's not Terrible Tommy anymore. And then you find out that they brought in the biggest clubhouse cancer in the National Hockey League, and he's going to send Ovechkin. Ovechkin's going to send Putin after him in about 3 weeks. And of course, I mean Pierre Puke Dubois. Last year they made the playoffs because Charlie Lindgren played out of his mind. Yeah. Charlie Lindgren, he's Charlie Lindgren. He's not Patrick Waugh. So I know Logan Thompson's got an upgrade as a backup, but I just think they're going to sink to the 6 hole.
Yeah, now that sounds about right. I like some of the things they did this summer. I did. But they were really not a playoff team last year. I know they got in. They had, a -30 goal differential, if I'm not mistaken. It's just not a good hockey team. And nobody wants to hear this, and I have all the respect in the world for the guy. He's going to break the goal record, and I look forward to seeing it when he does. It'll be a great day for hockey when Ovechkin passes Gretzky. He's hurting them now. Like 5-on-5, he really hurts them. He's not very good anymore. He's so slow. I know we say that kind of stuff about Gino too, right? That he's just so slow. He's not the same guy, and that's true. Ovechkin's like ×5 in that regard. Like he really hurt them at times last season. And they overachieved. Goaltending played a big role. I just wasn't that impressed with them last season. I think they were really lucky to make the playoffs. I think at the end of the season, especially the Penguins and Red Wings were way better than the Capitals. They found a way to get in, but they just don't look like a playoff team to me.
Yeah. And then that brings us to number 5 in the Metro on Joe's ranking. I'm curious, Josh, where you have them ranked. It would be our beloved Pittsburgh Penguins. Probably looking on the outside looking in according to this. But I'll let you guys take it from there.
My thing with the Penguins right now is that I think them and the Islanders are pretty close, but I like Varlamov and Sorokin way more than I like Jari and Nedeljkovic when push comes to shove. That's what puts me over the top with the Islanders over the Penguins. I think it's kind of a dead heat. And as my beloved partner Andy Picaro on Puckoff always says, he always counts goals, and they got to replace all of Jake's goals. That's a lot of goals they got to replace. So I'm not down on the Penguins. I think they're a little bit weaker than they were last year. And if Jari can step up, I think that's the biggest question. If Jari can be all-star Jari and not Palti Jari, then we're going to be in the mix till the end no matter what, because Sid will just carry the team anyway. But if few things break right, I like the Penguins to maybe get to the 4 seed, or maybe a wild card, but I don't know. That's where I stand, Josh.
I actually would rank them 4th in the division, but I think 5 teams are probably getting in from the Atlantic. So I still think that's their problem in terms of qualifying for the postseason. I just think the Atlantic's a way better division. The problem for the Penguins is there are so many questions. And if you don't get the right answers to all those questions, it's a problem. Will the power play be better? It has to be better mathematically. It couldn't be worse. But will it be good enough? We don't know. Will Crosby and Malkin stay healthy again all season? They've done it a couple of years in a row. Can they do that at 37 and 38? I don't know. Who's the number 1 goaltender? How well will he play? I don't know. Will the bottom 6 ever score any goals? I don't know. Will Erik Karlsson be better? I don't know. You're probably going to get some positive answers to some of those questions, but what about all of them? They're interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if the Penguins made the playoffs, but I can't in good faith pick them to, because I just think there's too many red flags.
Yeah, as you started going through the questions there, I'm sitting there going, "Oh, that's a few more than I really thought there were going to be." That's, you get
Yes.
half. If you get all of them right, then sure, you'll be great.
And you don't need all of those things, but it's still, there was a time for so long the Penguins could have a slightly off season and still get 98 to 100 points and be a playoff lock. They're just not that team anymore.
Well, that'll bring us to number 4 on Joe's list. That'll be the New York Islanders. They are right next to the Penguins in this little corner of the division of teams that are probably not going to get in because, like Josh said, the Atlantic is indeed pretty good. So probably going to sweep up 2 playoff spots. But the Islanders, maybe with Patrick Waugh, we're going to see a lot of goalies pulled with 6 minutes left in the game, and we can get some cheap empty netters. I don't know, but what you guys see them? I know you kind of flip flopped here, Josh. You probably think they're landing 5, Penguins are 4, but really doesn't matter one way or the other if the Atlantic's gonna be so good.
Well, that's a great point, though, you made, Corey, because Patrick Waugh, Mr. Waugh, is going to have all season to put his stamp on this team, and I think that's a bonus for them. It's not your mother's, your grandmother's. It's not our Islanders anymore. The vaunted fourth line is broke up. Clutterbuck is not coming back, and Matt Martin is on a PTO. So that's gonna be different. They have Horvat and Barzal, which both those guys have to play better this year. But they added the Duke to that top line. I love Anthony Duclair. I know in my heart he's going to be a Penguin at some point because we get everybody I love at some point. So, and they still have Brock Nelson. They still got Anders Lee. And basically they still got Pollock and Pellick. But Dobson has emerged as a real number 1 defenseman. So that kind of makes the defense depth excellent. And I think their goaltending is great. So that's why I have them above the Penguins. But it's a toss-up, really.
I sometimes find it difficult to gauge the best NHL coaches down to the worst because pretty much everybody runs a similar system. And it's very easy to say, oh, this team's always good, so they must have a good coach. But I'll tell you this, you talk with people in hockey, they will tell you Patrick Waugh, he might be a little crazy, he might lose his mind every now and then. He's a really good coach, like really, really good coach. And you could see the difference in them when he took over last season. They got better offensively. You think good coaching, you usually think system, defensive stuff, but they started scoring more goals and playing kind of a different brand of hockey. There was just more energy. I think he's good on paper. They're kind of okay, just like they always are. They never scare you on paper, but they got a good coach and they've got one hell of a goaltender. Okay. So that's a scary combination for the rest of the division that they can. And when I've talked with people around the division in the last month, just employees of different teams, people in the know, they all kind of say, don't forget about the Islanders. They might be a little better than you think. So they're always right there. They never go away, do they?
Hey, Corey and Josh, and let's face it, the Penguins could be better than the Islanders, and they can have more regulation wins than the Fishermen. The Fishermen can have way more loser points.
That's what they
do.
do.
The difference in the world.
They're 1/3 of the season.
No, I mean they've got the system figured out pretty well. That is for sure. So they're always, they're going to be in the middle of the pack, but they're going to be, they're going to be part of the story in the middle of April when the playoff spots are being determined. That they're always hanging around.
Yeah, and then we got, speaking of hanging around, especially in the regular season Rod. I've been using that nickname. I know it was I always attribute it to you, Joe. That's regular season Rod in the Carolina Hurricanes, finishing number 3. That's where Joe has them. Josh, I'm curious, is that where you have them landing?
It is. I think they're still a playoff team. I think they're going to take a little bit of a nosedive in the standings. I think the championship window is starting to close on that group. I thought I love the aggression to go get Gensel, but when they couldn't keep him, to me, that was a real problem. I like Carolina. They play their asses off every game. They're so good defensively, but I don't think they have the goaltending to win a cup. I don't think they're as good at forward this season. And I think playing that way every year, all the time, probably has to wear on you a little bit. So I still think they're a playoff team, Joe, but I don't think they're what they were the last 2 or 3 years.
No, I just think they're a cut above the middle in the Metro. I don't think they're an elite team. I don't think they're a Stanley Cup winning team. I don't even think they're a conference. I don't think they can win 2 rounds in the playoffs, which they've proven they never can. It's regular season rod. He's going to get them to play hard in Winnipeg on a Tuesday, to play to get 4 out of to get 3 out of 4 points in the Edmonton Calgary weekend. When other teams phone, they never phone it in because Brenda Moore's down there doing military presses in front of them. They don't phone. But they lost Brady Shea, they lost Pesci. Those are 2 big losses. They still haven't got a great. I'm not as down on Freddie Anderson as Metro Toronto is, but Freddie Anderson's not going to scare anybody in that. I actually like the Russian kid more. The kid, but and then up front, I'm waiting for Svechnikov to become Yager. I love that guy. He never quite does it. Aho's a great player, but after that, it's all kind of it's mediocre. It's pretty good, and I think we talked about this at least as friendly in laughs. Slavin, I don't want my defenseman to win the Lady Byng. I'm sorry.
A little too nice. A little too nice.
That's a nice breakdown of the Hurricanes. Listen, I respect the way they play. I mean, it's not easy to get people to play in that market. You're not going to get superstars in the free agency market very often there. I understand that. They're good, and they're always good. But good doesn't win Stanley Cups. And in this case, I just have a feeling we're going to see them drop off just a little bit. I think they'll comfortably be a playoff team. I don't think they're in danger of being out of the postseason because they're just so deep. They have a couple guys get hurt, they'll still be good. They can withstand injuries, which I think is another reason that they're so good in the regular season. The depth they have, I just don't think they're Stanley Cup good. I think 3rd place sounds about right for them.
It'll be interesting if Nashis has a great year because he kind of bet on himself money. Because I thought for sure he would be in the a great trade piece last trade deadline season, but they kept him. But when Nashis is on, he's an all-star. When he's not, he disappears.
No, you're right. There's some games I think, damn, this guy's a great player. Then you don't notice him for 5 games. He's one of those guys for sure. So I mean. They're a nice team. They're a playoff team. I just find myself a little bored by them. I don't know. There's just nothing that gets you excited about the Hurricanes.
No, I do like Orlov though, but I like that. I like the I always the Chattenfield, the black dude that plays defense. I love that.
No, he's a good player. Not really good player. They don't have any weaknesses. I just don't know if there's enough greatness on that team to be a real championship team. I don't think there is.
Well, like Aho, he's just a cut below the guy that's going to score. Although he did score a couple good ones in the postseason last year. Just that one big goal that you just need to win a playoff game.
Yeah, no, he never does. That's right. He's one of those guys. He's a wonderful player. I don't know if you win a cup if he's your best player. I think that's a fair question.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Well, number 2 on Joe's list, and again, Josh, we'll see if this is where it lands for you too. My brother-in-law will be thrilled to know he's a New Jersey Devil native. He's a New Jersey native, a Devils fan, forever been little brother in our relationship because ever since he's been around the family, the Penguins have done nothing but win cups. So he's so sick of hearing about it. And the Devils, they look pretty good this year. They've got I'll tell you, Hughes is a bona fide superstar. At least gonna be. Let's see what happens. But Joe, where do you what do you think has them land in number 2 here in the division?
I think the Devils are going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals because I think when push comes to shove, they're going to beat the Rangers in the playoffs. I think they have the best 1-2 center combination in the East. In the Metro. With Nico Hischier is the perfect number 2 center with a little more scoring upside and offense than our buddy who plays for the Rangers. Jack Hughes is an absolute superstar. Their top 4 wingers that fill out the top 2 lines are 4 legitimate NHL top 6 wingers. Palat, Bratt, Meyer, Mercer. Just pretty good. They have good depth. And then Dougie Hamilton, I'm not the biggest Dougie Hamilton guy, but him and Seguin thought would make a great pairing. You got Quinn, you got Hughes' little brother. Pesci comes in, and then last year they could have had Casey the Smith, and it would have been an upgrade. Their goaltending was horrible. They went out and got Markstrom. Now is Markstrom Patrick Waugh? No, but he's way better than they've had the last 3 or 4 years. And I think the Devils are a team on the rise.
As we sit here right now on September 16th, 3:15 in the afternoon as we're recording this, the Devils are my pick to win the Eastern Conference. That's how big I am on them. I think they're really good. I mean, I love the summer they had. Markstrom, and Markstrom's a good goalie. I think he's good enough to win a cup if he's on the right team. You mentioned those centers, and look, you're right. Hughes is the superstar, but Nico Hischier, I mean, that guy, you win playoff series because of guys like him. He drove Sid absolutely nuts the last couple of years when they played against each other. He is a great defensive player, and he can score too. The team speed too is something you always notice with the Devils. They made the Penguins look so slow in a couple of those meetings last year. It was incredible. And I know the Penguins aren't fast anymore, but the Devils just blow you away with that team speed. I love everything they did in the summer. That's a well-built hockey team. I just have a feeling about them. I think they can win the whole thing. I think they're on the very short list of teams. They had kind of a step back last year, or a setback because of all the injuries, but don't be fooled. The Devils are really, really legit in my opinion.
And one other point is, I'm the biggest Lindy Ruff fan. He never has goaltending. That was his demise last season with the Devils. Now they bring in Sheldon Keefe. Now, is Sheldon Keefe toe Blake? No. But I think just getting Toronto, the weight of the world, off his back, I think he's a pretty good coach. And I think he's going to do wonders in New Jersey. I think they're just primed to start kicking ass.
I think he's a really good coach. I don't think he was ever the problem in Toronto. I really don't. I think, that'll be a complete 180 for him being in Jersey. There's not the pressure there. There's not much media there. Hell, there's not even fans sometimes. But he can just relax and coach, and it's a really good hire. Tom Fitzgerald has brought in so much talent there over the years. I'm telling you, the Devils are really big time. That's a good hockey team.
Yeah, and there's a common theme there. It's not always what's happening, the people in Toronto. It just happens to be Toronto that might be the problem. But so that brings us to number one. Again, I mean, it's the New York Rangers, President's Trophy winner last year. And Joe, you guys both kind of alluded to it, because I assume, Josh, you would have them running into the Devils. I would love to see that playoff series, a Devils Rangers playoff series. But that's where you have them ranked number one, maybe regular season, Joe. You don't see much of a drop off from last year.
No, they're going to beat a ton of teams. First of all, they have Igor, who I to this day think is a little overrated, and we were as Sidney Crosby. Hey, I'm not saying that we blew leads game 5, game 6, and game 7, so no excuses. It's our fault. But we were a goal away from ending this whole how great Igor Shesterkin is, as far as I'm concerned. He's not Henrik Lundqvist, and to me, what did Henry Lundqvist never win? So I get sick of the Ranger goaltending shoved up my ass all the time. And I'm a Quickie guy too, and Quickie saved them last season a little bit. Mika and Breadman are incredible. They disappeared in the playoffs, but they're incredible regular season. I'm a Chris Kreider guy. I love him. Vinny Trocheck, he's a great number 2 center. I think Lafreniere is fantastic. To me, I would try to trade Zibanejad and see what Lafreniere can do in the top line. But to me, my biggest thing with the Rangers is their defense. They have the best defense on paper. They love being up ice. They love running the power play. They love big hits. They love checking in the corner. You know what they don't like doing? Playing defense.
Yeah, Adam Fox is a wonderful power play guy. I don't think he's a great defenseman.
I'm sorry, Josh. He stole that Norris Trophy. I don't know how he won a Norris Trophy.
No, I agree. Keandre Miller, I love. I know you do too, Joe.
I know he's my man.
He is so talented. Great player. Trouba, though, is a problem, I think, at this stage. Trouba was really exposed in the postseason. And boy, did Florida in particular made him look bad. But I thought throughout the entire playoffs, he did not look good. Listen, I think the goaltender is really good. I think, he's durable. He's great in the regular season. Because of that alone, there's a real chance they win the division. They're not going to stress making the playoffs. They just have so much top-tier talent. I don't know. I don't necessarily like how they match up with the other best teams in the East. And they better win it soon if they're going to with this group of Rangers. They're a little older than you think. They've got a lot of forwards now into their early 30s. Not that you can't win then, but their window's starting to close. I think there's a lot of pressure in Manhattan this year.
Yeah, and I for one am ready to see the Rangers be put out the pasture. I'm okay with that. I want to see somebody else. I'm so sick of them. And Igor is so arrogant.
The fact that everyone doing on television is a former Ranger as well.
No, yeah,
it's a little old.
Yeah,
yes, it does.
Yeah, ESPN. You can't tell that they're right by Bristol, Connecticut. Is right by New
No,
York.
not at all. No bias for the Rangers at all.
No. No, but well, that'll do it for the Metro preview. And then we'll just follow this up here on the third segment with just a brief little Steelers recap, and then we'll go, take it from there. Welcome back to the third segment of Two for Talking, and we're going to talk a little bit of Steelers. We promise we don't have a ton of time today because with Sidney Crosby signing, Josh has got a dance card like no other right now that's filled up. And it's also the last day for corporate taxes, so gotta get those out the door. We're under the gun here, but the Steelers yesterday, good Lord, I think the NFL owes the rest of the fans an apology. Anyone that wasn't in the viewing area of the Bengals and Chiefs game, they should get their money back for their cable bill. I mean, that was a horrendous game.
Well, I gotta say, Joe, I was at a sports bar watching the game in Florida yesterday in West Palm Beach, where I am for a few days. And so I watched all the 1:00 games. All I saw were flags on the field. Every game had 25 flags. It was unbelievably boring and frustrating to watch. It was just a flag fest throughout the league. I don't know if refs are calling too much, if players are simply don't know the rules. Like I don't know if they're all poorly coached. I don't know what the problem is. I didn't think the product in general was very good yesterday. And that Steelers game, I'm glad they win. I'm from Western Pennsylvania. I like a good Steelers defensive victory, but wow, that was kind of a painful second half to watch.
Well, it goes back to my theory of why, other than the Steelers, I prefer college football. I can sit and watch college football all day long on Saturdays, which I usually do. And even on the plane yesterday, I wasn't watching the NFL. I was watching the college game day, the recap, the college final. I love watching all the highlights. And let's face it, the backyard brawl was the most incredible game I've ever seen.
No, yeah.
Game of the weekend.
It was far more entertaining than anything we saw on Sunday.
I mean, can the Steelers get Pitt's offensive coordinator? Because it's the same thing. They only got 11 yards, and I turned to the game on the third quarter. The end of the third quarter goes, well, Pitt's managed 11 yards in the whole half. All of a sudden, they get two touchdowns. It's like the Steelers haven't got 2 touchdowns in the calendar year. The defense has been incredible, though. But that's a real change that really affected the enjoyment of the football game. Like, we couldn't see an onside kick.
I know.
Because of a rule change. No, I want the Steelers to win. I wanted them to recover the kick. But still, can I see them?
Yeah, it was very bizarre.
No, wait, did they not go for an onside kick because of the rule? I thought that you're allowed that if you declare, then you can go for it.
I don't even know. I actually still don't even understand the rules of the onside. I know you have to say you're going for an onside kick. Whatever that was didn't look like an onside kick to me. It was just that whole second half was very bizarre. It was not entertaining. And it's looking at the Steelers. Listen, their defense might be really, really good. And that's encouraging. But when you look at the quarterback position, as we know, guys, if you don't have the quarterback position figured out, you have nothing. And I don't know what to make of Fields. He wasn't bad, and he was under so much pressure. The offensive line had a terrible game. So I don't know what to make of him. But it's pretty clear to me the coaches don't really trust him just to sit back and make plays and win games. They played it really, really safe. You get away with that against Denver. You're not going to get away with that against the big teams in the NFL. So there's obviously some real question marks there.
And get away with it. Like, guys come in and just throw the ball around. It's like no one is more the Pope has less job security than Tomlin. Who cares if the kid throws a pick? Let him do something.
Right. Because I don't think he played badly.
Now.
Like, I don't think Fields did anything wrong, really. I don't know what to make of them. They're playing it so safe, and I get it. It was good enough to win those 2 games. Wonderful. But I'm still curious to see if they hand over the reins to Russ at some point, if they're waiting for Fields to lose a game, then they go back to Russ. But then again, we don't know how he's going to look. I don't know. It's a very strange situation with the Steelers right now.
But I mean, Fields has looked okay. He's looked okay. I mean, I think the only thing I did enjoy was a couple of the deep passes, even though they were pass interferences. At least someone threw the ball past the stick.
And I will say, all those penalties took away a couple of huge plays for Fields. I mean, if the offensive line's not, guilty of one penalty after another, like his numbers actually would have looked pretty good yesterday. So I don't think he played poorly. I just don't really know what he is yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not a shameless plug, but on the Two for Talking website, I'm going to put a little write up, and that's kind of what I wrote about Justin Fields. Has he done anything to supplant Russell Wilson? No. But has he done anything to prove that he's a career backup? No. Like I don't even know what he's done. Like, and
until they lose a game, you probably have to stick with him. I mean, it's not a good look if Tomlin goes with Russell this week and they lose 20-6 to the Chargers. Like that's not going to go. Then you got a real problem on your hands.
That being said, the jump we made when we had Mason Rudolph as opposed to Kenny Pickett, it's like, oh wow, that's an offense. So I don't know. It remains to be seen what happens here with Russell Wilson. I have a feeling he's not going to play this week, so we shall see.
Is there any doubt that we wouldn't be a better team than with Mason Rudolph right now?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. At least the Ravens are 0-2. That's pretty funny. It screwed up a parlay or two of mine, but it was still worth it just to see the Ravens blow a lead at home to the Raiders, for God's sake. That was rather.
I'm telling you, I don't think they're good. Other than Lamar, I don't think they're a good football team.
They got a bitch of a schedule coming up. They got the Cowboys and the Bills the next 2 weeks. They could be in some trouble down in Maryland.
Yeah. I know it hurts I know it hurts the Steelers if the Bengals are good. I'm just a Joe Burrow guy. And God, I felt bad for him yesterday because he did everything.
Oh, they should have won that game.
And they should have won that game. And I'm really sick of Father of the Year Andy Reid. And I'm sick of, I'm sick of the Taylor Swift's boyfriend. To me, of whatever the tight end and his retired fat ass brother. Taylor Swift is the least offensive of those three.
Absolutely.
Like, she bothers me the least.
Yeah, I don't care about her at all. I'm not a big Travis Kelce. I disliked Travis Kelce like long ago. I've always found him kind of obnoxious. And now, like, you watch the Chiefs, they didn't even play well the first 2 weeks. They've got that whole Patriots mojo where they're winning games that they shouldn't even win, which is really drives you nuts when you watch them play.
And I'll go tinfoil hat. I never saw a good replay of the Burrow fumble anyway.
No, that's true. I felt bad for the Bengals. They especially Burrow. He played a great game yesterday.
And then he's running downfield. His receivers getting like 15 yards for. What was the guy screaming about for 20 minutes? Even for enough time for Burrow to run down and try to peel him away.
I'm sure Joe appreciated the malcontent receiver who still has 2 years left on his contract and who held out all camp, mouthing off and costing them 15 yards. That was great.
Yeah, I mean the only team I really the Ravens are the Ravens, but I just hate the Brownies because I know a guy in Cleveland that I just never want to see any joy for. So
don't worry, they'll have, even though they won yesterday, they'll have very little joy this year up in Cleveland.
That's right.
Well, that'll do it for us on the Two for Talking show. You can email the show. It's contact@twofortalking.com, and send us your questions, remarks, and maybe we'll see. If you see Josh out at training camp, say hello. I'm going to try to poke out there at least once, maybe twice. And Joe will be on the live streams, of course, watching all the live streams of the Penguins. So
I know I get my computer fixed. That's why I was silent for a minute. The guy was calling in because my computer blew up this weekend. I don't know.
Got to get it fixed for training camp.
Yeah, I got that right. Never ends.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll
my
do.
My computer is the Bo Bennett of computers.
It's great when it works, But well, thank you, Sidney Crosby, for signing, making our lives a little simpler here, and we'll talk to you guys next week.